All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us for another episode of Quantum Leaps, the show where we interview thought leaders around the space to talk about Web3 and all the exciting innovations that are happening. Today, I have one of my close friends in the space, Rizzle. Thanks for jumping on today.
Thank you, man. Appreciate you having me.
Man, you're really people like to throw out the word OG in the space, especially if someone's been around for more than 2 months. But you really have been in the space for quite a long time, and you've got, I think, a little bit more perspective, and definitely one of the influencers out there who really cares about the culture more than the shill, which I think we all appreciate.
Yeah.
So I wonder if you could just get started, just tell us a little bit about, how you got involved in the space in general, maybe a little brief history, and, you could even start to delve into some of the projects you've been a part of as well.
Sure, man. Ben, as soon as I figured out what crypto was, like back in like 2012 or so, I got like obsessed with just like the concept behind it and was like always fascinated with it and like tinkering with different like applications and projects as they were like coming out and everything. And because of that, had just sort of bounced around from like all the different like early crypto communities, just as an enthusiast, like learning about like the different stuff going on. And I honestly like really disliked a lot of the communities out there, like almost all of them, man. They were just all like really toxic and shilly and like, but you sort of had to like sift through all this stuff in order to like, get to the good stuff and, find the interesting projects and stuff. So anyway, man, I eventually came upon the Scent community, which is sort of like in a different form now, around like 2017, 18, I want to say. Which sort of so Scent was like a crypto-based like social media platform that sort of became like a hub of like very early crypto art and hangout for artists who are coming up in the NFT space and everything. So I started doing a podcast like very early on with my buddy Matt, now called the Matt and Rizzle Show, where we were just sort of like highlighting members from the community, talking about like interesting stuff going on, which very, very quickly became NFT dominated as, the sort of artist uprising in the NFT space started happening and everything. So it was there very early on, man. It was cool to see it sort of like grow over time. 2019, I went like full-time NFTs, worked with Jimmy Eth, co-founded NFT 42, which is the parent company of Aave, Token Smart, Nameless, a bunch of other things. Since exited that, that's still going strong. Now I've got like a host of my own like wacky projects that I'm involved with in some capacity or another. Still doing the podcast. I have like a weekly virtual event talking about like cool stuff going on in the crypto space. Launching my own project on Artblocks coming out soon. So I do a little bit of everything, man, but it is, I'm glad it translates well. Like you said, it is very much like for the love of the space and like the culture, and what we do is like so cool, man. And I just, really enjoy it.
Right on. Well, so before we dive a little bit deeper into some of those projects that you're currently working on, can you tell us a little bit, since you've joined, up to now over those, 3-4 years at this point, 5 maybe, how has the space changed, especially in like the last year or so? I think it's changed quite a lot. Where do you see it going? And in your mind, what's like what are some of the more important parts of that culture that you identified that we need to really like make sure we're hanging on to or circling back to, or, not losing touch with?
Yeah, dude, it's been like a crazy evolution. I mean, in the very beginning, the amount of people, NFTs as like a concept, as like a technology, have so many different like wide ranging applications. You can use them for like so many different things, like things we haven't even like scratched the surface of yet. But in the very beginning of like the NFT days, there was like there was not that many people focusing on like all those different things. So like when you were talking about NFTs, you're, even though there was like so many different things you could do with them, you're still talking about like a small community, like experimenting with the technology. There wasn't like tons of like rapid innovation because there was just like a limited amount of people tinkering around with this stuff. So dude, especially in the past year, man, I feel like the communities have, as the space has exploded and expanded like super rapidly, I feel like a lot of these communities, not have necessarily fragmented, but have sort of like gone off in their own directions. Certainly like the collectibles community is like off the charts, like, you know, just in terms of momentum, like cash flow flowing through there. You know, the art scene got swept up in the big hype cycle as well, but that's sort of, you know, now I feel like got its own vibe going on with it that's like separate from the collectibles culture, that's also separate from like the DeFi squads that were also like sort of all lumped into this same community, like, you know, 2 or 3 years ago. It was just all of us hanging out together. So now I feel like the big camps are starting to, you know, establish themselves and establish their own like culture within the larger NFT culture. But it's been wild, man. I think we've joked about it before, man. Like I always thought the technology would need to be better before mainstream adoption. And I feel like a lot of us felt that way. Like shit just had to be like snappier and like work better and be like more accessible to people. But turns out it didn't matter too much. Man. Like all these people showed up anyway. So here we are.
Right on, right on. Yeah, I mean, you know, I think it'll always be improving. You know, I think like, you know, it met the minimum sort of viable, you know, functionality, which was that like artists from around the world could, you know, approach sort of, you know, new financial markets and finally get, you know, rewarded for their artwork, which was like, it needed at least that. You know, it might be slow, it might be expensive, you know, proof of stake will be nice, all that, but at least, you know, artists are getting recognized for their work, which I think is really what brought people in a huge way in like, you know, 2020. Yeah. So tell us a little bit more about some of the projects that you're currently working on, and, you know, where are they at? Where are they going? Yeah.
Sure, man. I mean, two of my longest standing projects are just like the podcast that I've been doing with Matt, which is just, you know, just for fun. Honestly, we don't get paid. We have a sponsorship that allows us to pay our editor and, you know, get someone, Foxy Yoga does some awesome promo for us, just to free up Matt and my time or whatever. But that and the Whip meetup has been my weekly virtual event. I also co-host that with Matt, just highlighting different people doing cool stuff. Honestly, I feel like Matt would say the same. This is sort of like both of our like way to get to talk to people who are doing cool stuff. Like we've sort of created, like, now you got a podcast and a virtual event, like come explain your cool stuff to us and our audience. So those have been my long-standing projects that have honestly led to almost everything that I've done like within the space up until this point. Like I've just met so many people doing so many cool things. Really early on believed in Jim's philosophy about like on-chain metadata, and like, you know, in a perfect world, in theory, you want all the information living on the blockchain. And so that sort of has woven a common thread throughout a lot of my projects. I like the on-chain like mantra. That my current project coming up on Artblocks, everything on Artblocks is on chain, so that has that same like, you know, theme coming through it. I like fun, like wacky, weird stuff. Like anyone who's been to the Whip knows, like we do like a lot of goofy activities and scavenger hunts and giveaways. And I don't know, man, the technology allows you to do like so many fun things that I like to keep it light. And I feel like there's room for that kind of stuff within the space too. I work with the Fly Frogs for nothing other than the love of their like weird googly eyes. And their developer Molly is sharp, man, and she like has the same like ethos of like, we got all this technology, like let's just try and do weird stuff. Let's try and make like, you know, tadpoles, but like let's feed the frogs like polygon flies to make like mainnet tadpoles. Yeah. And just like, you know, build in some like recessive traits and just sort of like, you know, not only push the limits of what you can do with this technology in like a really innovative way, but like also use it to have some fun and do some like goofy community stuff. And like I do believe like innovation, you know, happens often through that. So those are like the main things that I've been focusing on recently. This Artblocks project is getting so close to come out, man. And I don't know when this will be released, but we hit like a last minute snag without like dropping too much alpha. Dropping this Artblocks project. It's going to be like an interoperable, wearable, generative And I came up with a lot of like really stupid names for these things. But in coming up with these stupid names, I used like a lot of characters like pluses and like apostrophes and parentheses and like things that like the algo over at Artblocks like wasn't liking. So now we got to figure out like which dumb name of mine like tripped up the thing in order to like rewrite the like very last piece of script. It's like 99% done. I'm like, oh my God, this figures, right? Like my own idiotic. So this is what I do all day, man. I just sort of fuck around with weird NFT stuff.
That's awesome. Well, I mean, you guys have definitely cultivated a really amazing community over there. You know, it was, more than a year ago now that we had our first, Charge Particles launch party in the Token Smart Discord, and those are always amazing. You guys really just have such a warm, energetic, welcoming, excitable group of people around, which is awesome. So, I have no doubt that all of these projects are going to continue to succeed for sure. But that's hilarious, just naming stuff, silly naming that led to like bugs, who'd have thought that creative naming would lead to sort of, algorithmic bugs.
Yeah, I have a reputation for breaking things by like coming up with stupid ideas. So once it's launched, I'm trying to laugh at it now, but I'm sort of like, dude, I wish we could just get this thing like off the ground. It's been like 9 months coming. Like once we can launch, we can all like have a good laugh about this whole thing. But I'm like, oh my God, seriously. But yeah, it sort of falls in line with my whole like Rizzle ethos of trying stuff and potentially breaking things.
In the spirit of the meme,
Yeah,
So I got one more question for you, just a broad one, what is it, in the next like 6 months or 2 years, anywhere in that sort of range that you're most excited about or optimistic about, or the innovation that you think is going to be critical to changing the space in a big way, or any of this sort of stuff?
Dude, I feel like everything just getting a little bit better will improve everything significantly. Part of the problem still is just like barrier to entry. And one of the things I really love about this technology, NFTs and like crypto in general, is I feel like the accessibility to people around the globe, solves so many problems for so many people. And right now there's just so many barriers to entry still that prevent people from getting involved in NFTs, for example, even if they can just like download a crypto wallet or whatever. So I really just hope, I feel like as technology improves, like that problem will continue to take care of itself. And so that excites me, man. I feel like there's like a lot of countries, a lot of people out there who deserve space at the table and to be able to contribute and create things and be all up in the mix, and have historically been marginalized, and this takes away not all of that, but like a lot of those barriers to entry and everything. So that part's exciting, man. That was what was really exciting, like early on, like in the art community and crypto, is like, dude, like I don't even know where any of these people are until I find out. But then I find out like all these people I've been hanging out with are like all over the world, like, and we're all just sort of involved in the same thing. This project that I'm dropping, I didn't even know where my team was from, but the developer's from like Austria and the artist is from now I'm blanking on it, man, like another country. It matters, but it doesn't matter because that's so cool, and we can come together and create something, including a revenue stream for ourselves with like very little friction. We've just identified each other as people who want to work together. And I think that continues to happen in a good way for a lot of people over time, hopefully.
Yeah. I mean, inclusion, I think, right? Radical sort of inclusion of everyone is welcome in the space, which is, I think one of the primary, more important ethoses. I don't know if that's the plural of ethos,
Sounds good.
But yeah, man. Well, thank you so much for sharing your perspective, and really exciting to see where the Artblocks project goes, as well as the whip and the podcast, the frogs as well. The tadpoles are hilarious. That's awesome. But thank you for jumping on and chatting with us today. And I will hope to see more of your stuff coming soon.
Thanks, man. Appreciate you having me on. Fun as always, dude.
Until next time.
Bye, dude.